Hello and welcome to the Powerhouse Woman Show. Thank you for joining us. This show is all about shedding light and putting a spotlight on incredible powerhouse women who are doing amazing things. They not only talk about their stories, but they talk about their lessons learned, mistakes they've made, how they got up after a setback. They also share wisdom as well. I'm Monica Pierre. I'm a three-time Suncoast Regional Emmy Award winner. And basically, I love talking to people about their stories, their dreams, what they're working on. I get so excited. So we feature some of these powerhouse women on the show each and every week. We're now in our fifth season. We started our fifth season this year, and I'm so excited about that. Have you ever thought that when it comes to creating a universe or something important or big, a world, that it's only for Hollywood producers, it's only for showrunners, it's only for writers and authors? Today, we're going to change the dynamic. We're going to say, you know what? All those ideas, the passion, the projects, all of the things that make you come alive can be part of your universe. So we're excited today because we are joined by the one and only Michelle D. Jackson with PR Solutions. So many things. I'm going to read some of this stuff. She has an expansive universe, marketing strategist, business consultant, a three-time published author, an award-winning author, founder of the Black Writers Workspace. She also has her own hybrid book publishing company, the driving force behind Black Ink Book Festival held here in New Orleans. She's also an adjunct professor and host of the Pen Posse podcast. I know I left a lot out, Michelle, but we only have a 15-minute show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's an amazing time to be able to be on here with you, Monica.
Great. And when I started thinking about you and we had coffee, and I said, wow, Michelle has created her own universe. Yes, there's Shonda Rhimes. Yes, there's the guy, Lori, who does all the shows on CBS, all the comedies. But there's also Michelle Jackson. And I know there are a lot of powerhouse women out there who are doing some amazing things, but they don't really know that it's part of their own universe. So I'd like to start from the beginning, and we have a live show. Oh, yes, Coach Danny D. Hi, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us today. So let's go back to the beginning. When you were young, a little girl, did you see yourself doing one thing or a lot of different things? What was it like for you?
I grew up in Fairfield, Alabama, a small town outside of Birmingham. I grew up in public housing, and I grew up in a home that was very creative. My brother, all my brothers were artists. Two of them were artists. One um, self-taught artist would win all the art competitions around the city. My other brother made clothes. My oldest brother was very smart, very intelligent. My mother was a Head Start teacher. And so she was always making things. And so I was the writer in the house, and I was the business owner, the person who wanted to be a business owner in the house. So I always wanted to be a professional writer, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Those were the two things. And I never felt like anything would stand in my way, although there were so many things in my way. But I really, as a little girl, I felt like that was the mission, or that was the task that God had given to me, to move in those two directions. And although I went around the way to get there, ultimately I came to a place where I could be the writer and the entrepreneur that I wanted to be.
And an award-winning writer at that, having a lot of books as well. You shared that you grew up in the projects, but you also grew up across the street from a university.
Yes, I grew up across the street from Miles College University. Miles College is a HBCU. So, I mean, within like 100 steps from my door, you could enter the gates of Miles College. And to grow up across the street from an HBCU really did give me a sense of self-pride. We spent most of our time on that college campus, seeing the AKs and the Deltas and the Kappas and talking to the professors. And so college was always a part of my story. Although I grew up in the projects, I think almost everybody I grew up with went on to get either a college degree or they went on to be successful in the military. And I think it had a lot to do with the fact that we had that influence. We got to see people go to school at an historically Black college, and we got to interact with them. And so that was a big part of what, helped me to frame my path towards college. There was never a point where I didn't feel that I would go to college because of the experience of living so close to an HBCU.
But you did not go to an HBCU.
I did not go to an HBCU, and that was a heartburn coming out of high school because my teachers, my counselors, they wanted me to go to an HBCU. And it wasn't about the HBCU brand or anything. It was about the fact that I'm a little girl growing up in the projects, and my goal was to never live in the projects. And I knew that was what my mother wanted for me as well. And so when I decided to go into communications, I went to the list of schools that had the best school of communications, and the University of Alabama was at the top. And the second one was Alabama State, which is an HBCU. So if I had not gone to Alabama, I would have definitely been at an HBCU. But always, my husband is a graduate, my mother-in-law a graduate of HBCU, so we are big supporters in my household. Mhm.
Absolutely. Let's talk about this idea of creating our own universe. What are your thoughts on that? And especially being intentional and feeling that you can try and initiate all these things. And it doesn't mean that, as my father used to call it, pillar to post, where you don't know what you want and you're all scatterbrained and everything like that. But that this is part of expressing and manifesting all the gifts that you've been given.
It is so okay to be and to want to be more than one thing. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to do big things, work on big projects that were going to impact the community. I have a nonprofit. I wanted to work with youth. I wanted to teach. And there's just so many things that I always wanted to do. And so what I was very happy about growing up was that no one was saying to me, no, you have to do one thing. I also wanted to be a wife, and I wanted to be a mother, and I've accomplished those things as well. So there was just many, many layers to me as an individual. And I learned to embrace that instead of worry about how people would think of me because I was doing so many things. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not easy, because even now I have people who will question, do I sleep? Question, my ambition, how much I want to accomplish, but I don't do anything halfway. I go all in. And so it's kind of a situation where I feel like it was just the way God made me. He didn't make me to be one thing. He wanted me to be multidimensional. And I'm grateful because, my big imagination and my husband and my son, they support me. And so that's the key, having the big imagination of things that you want to do for yourself is something that you can manifest, but you need support. And I have that type of support. I had it growing up when I wanted to go to the ballet and to the plays. And my mother, she didn't do a lot of those things, but she never said no. She said go, and so I got to see Angela Davis speak. I got to see Louis Farrakhan speak. I got to see Maya Angelou speak. These were things that inspired me. These were people that inspired me. And there wasn't anyone in my circle that said, you shouldn't do this. And that really helped to nurture me as someone who wanted to do so many different things.
How do you do so many things? I think I asked you the question when we were talking about you being on the Powerhouse Woman. How do you know what to keep saying yes to or what not to say yes to? Is it like, let's try everything? Or are you also strategic and, in a way, realistic about what you can put on your plates at one time?
You have to get to know who you are, and you have to be honest about your bandwidth. How much can you actually take on? I mean, I can't do everything, but the things that I can do, I build a strategy around it. And I'm really good, I think, at prioritizing, understanding what's important in the moment and moving towards that. And I think that's been the catalyst of my success in the business world, is that I can come into a company and work with them, and I can understand what's the most important thing I should be working on. However, you have to sleep, and you have to pray, and you have to ask God what it is that he wants you to do. You have to, invest time in talking to your family about what could work and what can't work. And sometimes, you're not going to get the work-life balance that you always want. I mean, I always get tickled when I go to these women's conferences, and the first question is, what's work-life balance? How do you get work-life balance? And I say, there is none. I mean,
No.
you work. And so but I love doing what I do. And for years, I did it on the corporate side. I ran shopping centers for 10 years. And then I was a banker for 4 years. And then I wrote policy for the state of Maryland for 6 years. And I developed programs for the state of Maryland. But the whole time I was doing this work and having a level of success, I knew I wanted to do it for myself. So that was the little nod in the back of my head, was like, you're doing a lot of work for other people. When are you going to stop and do this for yourself? And so in 2013, we moved to Pittsburgh. My husband's a retired military officer, so we've moved around a lot. And honestly, I think that was a blessing in itself, because it made me learn how to start over. I'm not afraid of change, and I'm not afraid of starting over. I love starting over. And so a lot of people become afraid of that. Change is one of the hardest things that we do. And so for me, I embrace it because I feel like it gives me an opportunity to reinvent myself. And so when I became a full-time entrepreneur, I just felt like I finally fit into the shoes that God had made for me. You know, I was happy. I was happy I could do the things that I love to do for myself, and to work with the people who I wanted to work with.
Well, you meet a lot of people. You're living in New Orleans now with your husband and your son, and so how do you answer the question, or how do you choose to respond to the question? So, Michelle, tell us what you do.
Oh boy. At one level, I love that question because it always makes people go, oh man, this is amazing. And I want to be inspiring. But then I get the question, and then I can see that little look in someone's eyes when they say she's a little scatterbrained. She's all over the place. There is no way she's doing all these things. So I sometimes
And
try.
doing them well, right? You could be doing them, but
Yeah,
not doing
exactly.
them well.
So I do. I'm very measured in how I answer the question, depending on the environment that I'm in. Sometimes I'll say I write books. Sometimes I say I teach for Tulane. Sometimes I just go. I'll tell people I'm a professional clothes washer, and I just leave it at that, because it just becomes a little bit too much to share, because it feels like I'm all over the place. But I'm really not. It all ties into my love of writing and my love for working with entrepreneurs. So those are the two pieces that I focus in on, and I just move forward.
Right. Because again, you have said that you're very strategic. So instead of giving a laundry list of all the things you do, you read the room and you respond in that way, which would be the most, I think that's going to be a great piece of advice and aha moment for those who are going to be watching and struggling with, what do I say? What do I call this universe, this world that I have created and that I am creating?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the other elements, the moon, the stars, and everything else in your universe. Talk a little bit about the work of the Black Writers Workspace, because last count, it's 16,000 Facebook members and growing. So, how
Growing.
did you decide that this was also something you wanted to put in your world or make available in your universe?
This was one of the things that I did not try to create. It was very organic. I published my first book in 2010. I didn't publish my next book until 2020. And I released the book on February the 14th. And a month later, we were stuck in the house because of COVID. So I could not get out. I couldn't go to book fairs and do all the things that I'd done for my second book. So I decided to create a online community. Now, mind you, this was when, the murder of George Floyd was a major conversation. We were stuck in COVID. No one knew what was going to happen. And a lot of Black power, the culture was really on center stage. People were creating all types of programs, and, we were talking about Black Lives Matter. And so I said, well, I'm going to create the Black Writers Workspace, and I'm going to invite 10 or more people that I knew who wrote books. That's all I know is about 10 people who wrote books at the time. So I wasn't really trying to create a community. And it just took off. We now have over 16,000 Black writers and avid readers. We have workshops, book fairs, pen posses, writing competitions. We have best-selling authors who engage with us. It has turned into its own community, its own business. And I just took it. I was like, you know what? Let's see where this goes. And I was excited because growing up, I was always in awe of Maya Angelou and John Coltrane, and how they would come together, and, Miles Davis, and some of these amazing performers and writers and artists would come together in New York, and they would all, kind of just bounce and grow off of each other's power and passion. And I was so excited about that community, but I never could have that because I was a military wife, and we were never in one place for more than about 5 years. So when I created this community, it was almost like I got this opportunity to do something online that I never thought I could have. And that's having this new literary family. And it just continues to grow. We're at 60, over 16,000 now. I've spun out a business called Direct to Author, where I actually promote independent books, and it's direct, the number two author.com. I've also created a publishing company, Jackson Publishing Group. I mean, it's just taken off, and I'm just here for it. I love it. I enjoy it. I do have on my own podcast.
Yes.
I do just countless things, and it's all around writers. So it's almost like all the years I spent in in the corporate world and in the public entity, not doing the creative writing that I wanted to do. All of a sudden, I get this time to engage with all these writers, and it has inspired me to write more as well.
And inspired you also, Michelle, to start a book festival. Tell us about that.
The Black Ink Book Festival is in its second year here in New Orleans. It's this year's event is going to be on May 11th. It's at City Park at the Pavilion of the Two Sisters. Last year we did it in January 2023. We had 75 authors. 73 of them were African American authors. They came from as far as Washington State and New York to New Orleans in order to have to sell their books. And we had a great time. I mean, we had a DJ. We had over 500 attendees. We had amazing prizes. We gave away books. We brought in the Zulu Tramps. It was just an amazing event. And the night before the actual book fair, we had a reception at Baldwin and Co. bookstore for all of our writers. And so we're going to do it again in May. We have already started selling our booths. We're almost halfway done selling them, and it's in May. So it's moving so quickly. I'm so excited. We have Farah Rashan, who's going to be one of our featured authors. She's a best-selling author here in New Orleans. We're going to be working with a host of other featured authors. They come in, they get interviews. So it's just a lot of activity, but it's such a wonderful event. And so we invite everybody to come out May 11th, City Park. Come out. It's free to get in and just buy books and support authors. That's what it's all about.
Buy books and create. I love what you're saying too, because what I'm hearing is that while you're strategic, while you're intentional, you're also open, because you don't know where things will lead and how they will take on a life force of their own in your universe.
Absolutely. And I believe in walking through doors of opportunity. And if I could leave any word to anyone is, let's not be afraid of change. Really walk through those doors. When someone presents something in front of you, think about it, be intentional about how you reflect on how it's going to impact your life. But don't shy away because someone said you shouldn't do it, or, when no one has ever done it before. Be the first. Be the first and go hard. I mean, really put the time and energy into it so that you can be successful. Because I'm really, I helped to write a legislative initiative for the state of Maryland, and it took me 2 years to do it. But when it happened, I knew that was going to be my part of my legacy. And so what I do for my legacy, for my son, for my husband. And so I try not to be afraid. Don't be afraid of technology. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of the camera. Just go for the things that you want to go for, because those are going to be the things that your grandkids remember about you. And we want to leave a great legacy for our families.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being with us. And how can people learn more about your universe, about your world? And I'm optimistic that those of you watching and who will watch, that instead of feeling bad about all of these gifts and things that you like to do, your pet projects, your purpose, your mission, your expertise, your talent, they work in your world. And when you're okay with it, then the rest of the world can be okay with it. And even if they're not okay with it, that's okay too. So how can people find out about you and follow you, or just be in contact with all of the things that you're involved with?
You can always reach me at author MichelleDJackson.com. That's one way to reach me. But you can also join us at the Black Writers Workspace on Facebook. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I have a new publishing house, Jackson Publishing Group. If you're looking for help with your independent book, that's at jpgbooks.org. And so it's just so many ways. I'm a Tulane. I teach economic development at Tulane in the master's program. I'm an adjunct professor there. You can reach me there as well. And so it's just so many different ways to connect with me. But I just want to stop and say, Monica, it's such an honor to be on here with you. all the things that you've done. We know that you've walked through those doors of opportunity. You are an inspiration to all of us. And so I just hope that, if you don't follow anything that I've said, look at the work, the body of work of Monica Pierre, and you'll know that on the other side of those hard, those grunt days when you've got to work hard, there will be some great rewards for you.
Oh,
Thank you for
thank you
having me.
for that. That's very kind of you. Thanks for being on the show, Michelle.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining us today on the Powerhouse Woman Show. And I'm going to challenge you too in 2024. Don't be afraid of your own story. Don't be afraid to be the one who tells your story. For impact, yes. Influence, yes. Marketing, yes. All of those things. But most importantly, for the legacy. We are the gatekeepers and the guardians of our stories. If we don't tell them, they may not even get told. And if they are told, it may be a watered down version of it, or who knows? So be strong, say yes to doing that. And I want to invite you to have a conversation with me about the Storymaker Academy. I think you're going to see something that can really move you forward and have you out there telling your own story with the power, the boldness, and the confidence that you need to do it. So all you have to do, just send me or just find out more about it, monicapierpresents.com/academy, and we'll help you. I'll help you. You have my guarantee. Figure out your best story to tell and how to tell it. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time on the Powerhouse Woman Show.